Hey folks, today is Friday, June 21st, 2019. As usual, my name is Jake Baldino, and we're here every Friday to talk about the video game news. Hey, do you remember like a week or two ago when I recorded the Friday show and I said January instead of June, and nobody called me out on that?
May have passed 3 people.
How did you miss that?
It's your job to get it right.
Yeah, but how did you miss that?
How did you say it wrong?
I hate you. The first bit of news, it is a little bit of a slow news week, the week after E3-ish, but we got some interesting quotes from EA of all people. So, in the UK, there was a parliament hearing for digital culture and stuff, and British parliament officials did pressure both EA and Epic officials on, loot boxes and gambling and stuff like that, and the quotes from it are pretty interesting. And by interesting, I mean kind of hilarious. So, EA's vice president of legal affairs said, and I quote, that loot boxes are actually surprise mechanics. That's the word they actually use. And they also went on to compare them similar to way smaller innocent stuff like Kinder eggs or Hatchimals. Unfortunately, that full quote, when she does describe going into a store like a Target and buying a Kinder egg or a Hatchimal at the counter and comparing it directly to that, sounds like she doesn't actually grasp the full concept of what it is. The quote also goes further, and they're described as ethical and quite fun. She also said, and I quote, "We also disagree that there's evidence that shows it leads to gambling." I think that this whole quote is in really poor taste, especially considering other countries, including what we've talked about. Belgium has been actually outlawing these types of things and pushing for more transparency. The United States, a couple of senators have introduced a bill. So I think for EA to go out there with a representative and say stuff like this, I think is not the right move. Little awkward. Of course, the quote, surprise mechanics or surprise boxes has been the internet punching bag of the week, and I'm kind of all for it. But on the flip side as well, if we are talking EA, like everything, I link it all down in the description below, but EA CEO Andrew Wilson did do the first sit-down interview in quite some time. It's an interesting read. I don't really care about what CEOs have to say, but in terms of actual human perspective about some of EA's failings, it's actually pretty candid. So if you like going really, really deep on this stuff, I say consider giving it a read. But I am curious to see what you guys think about this, with EA going out and kind of putting out the same old song and dance, especially to UK Parliament. What do you think is going to happen next? And briefly, before we move forward, this episode is brought to you by our friends over at ExpressVPN. Now, I've said this before, we have talked about them in the past because we do a lot of gaming news stories about internet privacy and security in the gaming world, so this just really makes sense. Using a VPN is really great for online safety, especially to protect yourself from some of those bad eggs in the online gaming world, but it's even better if you're maybe looking to access your online games from a restrictive school or work network, or just get around some of those pesky region restrictions. But also, on a more non-gaming note, you can browse with peace of mind on a public Wi-Fi network if you're just out and about on the town. For me personally, that's a big plus. And it's incredibly easy to use and comes in at under $7 a month with 3 months free on a 1-year package. Plus, you get a 30-day money-back guarantee. So take back your internet privacy today and find out how you can get 3 months free by clicking the link in the description. It's expressvpn.com/gameranx. And thanks to them for sponsoring this video. Now, in other news, a little bit more exciting news. CD Projekt Red has been out talking very much about Cyberpunk 2077 after it made that big splash at E3. But the newest thing that I'm pretty excited about is that they are saying that they do have planned expansions and more add-on content similar to how they did with The Witcher 3. And I'm all for that because I love the way The Witcher 3 handled just kind of like traditional expansions. I thought that they were all very well thought out, very good, and also brought new and interesting things and settings to the table for The Witcher. So the fact that they are eyeing a similar plan for Cyberpunk makes me very happy. One of the developers, the guy behind UI, did say in an interview that the core game will have a, and I quote, satisfying story arc and conclusion, but that they are eyeing options to expand it. It seemed like it worked out well for them with The Witcher 3. The bigger expansions, like especially Blood and Wine and stuff like that, were well received, especially by me. So I just am really looking forward to that. I mean, the game's not even out yet, and I'm already looking towards expansions. It's a little crazy. But in other news, it is worth pointing out that CD Projekt Red did say that the gameplay, the stuff that we've talked about in videos, the stuff that was shown behind closed doors at E3, that gameplay will make a debut during PAX West 2019, which will be at the end of August. So keep your eyes peeled. you have way more to look forward to for that. But I feel like we haven't talked about PlayStation in a while. They've kind of been flying under the radar with certain things, but the latest rumor on the block is once again chalking up that possibly The Last of Us 2 will be seeing a February 2020 release date. Now, this has been suggested in the past by Kotaku's big scoop breaker, Jason Schreier. It's also been reported by some analysts. The newest thing is an interview with the voice actress Ashley Johnson on YouTube. She did almost let slip the word February, essentially kind of lending credence to what has been said before about the release date. So we'll see. I think that could be a thing, considering we have Death Stranding in the fall. That's their big fall thing. They can follow it up with a 1-2 punch in the spring. I would very much like that. I want to play that. I think the game should take all the time it needs, but if the time is right, I am definitely down for some Naughty Dog post-apocalyptic murder. But moving over to Switch news, a little thing that flew under the radar, Devil May Cry, the original Devil May Cry, will be available on Nintendo Switch next week. That will be June 25th. So I'm always kind of like screaming from the rooftops about Devil May Cry. Weirdly enough, the original is still my favorite. So if you've never been exposed to those games and you have a Nintendo Switch, keep your eye out for that, dude. If you get a sandwich, get me a sandwich.
What kind of sandwich you want?
Ham, egg, and cheese on a bagel. But now let's talk about a game. I bring this up because I'm always fascinated by this game, Alpha Protocol. So, in case you missed the headlines, Alpha Protocol has been delisted from Steam. Now, this was a Sega published but Obsidian developed action RPG spy game that was kind of panned in some reviews, but it's kind of become a cult hit, especially among Obsidian and RPG fans. Interestingly enough, I am one of those people. I am a big Obsidian and RPG fan, but this game never really clicked with me. But either way, because of licenses expiring, it's now not on Steam. Sega did say that was a thing. Now, other things have been delisted on digital marketplaces and come back after some deals were reworked, so we don't know if that's going to happen. But I still think it's interesting to point out because that's the digital future, and I think it's always important to point out how weird the digital future can be and how murky and undefined it still is, and also how important game preservation is. Video game preservation is a thing. People do talk about it. There are organizations set up for it. Look it up. It's important. Because you know what? Since we are on the topic of that, we want to just show some cool little things out there. There is this interesting Vice article that breaks down the Blade Runner PC game. Remember that? That's really old. I'm dating myself. The point-and-click adventure game is notorious for not really just running at all on modern PCs, but some dedicated fan modders have spent years and years getting it to work and run on a modern PC. You have to own or have the files for the original game, of course, but I want to recommend that to you guys. It's linked in the description. It's just an article that breaks down the process of what different modders have done to get this going and what lengths people will go to play a good, beloved classic game, this one being from 1997. I just love stories like this, so check it out. But hey, man, since we are on the topic of things we're linking in description that are really cool, this was totally not on my radar. Thank you, Tom, for showing this to me. We have linked a full Let's Play video from I Am the Great Destroyer, and he is playing through Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes with HD textures at 4K 60 FPS. This is apparently a texture pack or a mod from Reddit user TopherGopher1, and it's pretty awesome. Twin Snakes is a little bit contentious for Metal Gear fans. I go back and forth on how I feel about it, but I definitely think I'm gonna try and set this up and get this running this weekend because it's just cool. Shout out to them. There is literally no limit to what you can do with games when you have an imagination and just a big passion for it. I love it. But in other news, we got some launch trailers for some games coming out that I wanted to highlight real quick. My Friend Pedro got a really cool animated launch trailer. Also, we've all been playing it in the office. We're not doing a before you buy on it, but it's damn good. It's a really good game. Play it. Also, in terms of games you should play, we got a really cool launch trailer for a Medieval. Essentially, have you played Dusk? It's from those guys, kind of. If you like old school PC FPS like Hexen, go for it, dude. Also, we did get a couple new details that flew under the radar for Elden Ring. This is the new From Software game, the one that is being worked on in tandem with George R.R. Martin. So, Hidetaka Miyazaki, the legend behind the Dark Souls games and Bloodborne and stuff like that, went on record talking about it a little bit more, giving us some details. He said that it is them returning to their roots to a Dark Souls style game, which, I mean, returning to your roots, all their games have kind of had a similar feel, but hey, that's another story. Little subtle differences, I get it. They did actually also, interestingly enough, say that the storytelling will be similar to Dark Souls, where it will be vague. But they said what they are doubling down on is improving just NPCs and stuff like that in the world, and just finding everything more interesting, because they confirmed that once again you are going to be making a customized player character with pretty much no personality. It's going to be that style of game. But Miyazaki talking about doubling down on NPCs and character development in that regard is good, because I really liked some of the character work that they did try and do with Sekiro. He did once again highlight that it will be open world, and he said because of the wide open world, apparently they're going to have more opportunity for telling a story. I'm really curious, because it's interesting that he's saying that it is so Dark Souls-y. He did highlight is that the world's mythology was developed by George R.R. Martin, so I'm curious to see where this goes. The whole mythology behind it, like Miyazaki said, is more Dark Souls than Bloodborne, but with a way more open environment. So again, I've been repeating myself a little bit, but I'm happy we know something about it now, at least something to expect. And you know what? I'm honestly glad that From Software is kind of sticking with their bread and butter, because those games are good. Also, one other story I really wanted to highlight, just because we missed it during E3. Limited Run is putting out classic Star Wars games, physical versions. This is crazy. I don't know how they got a deal or a partnership with Lucasfilm, but I don't care. It's really awesome. So here's what they're dropping. Star Wars Bounty Hunter, Star Wars Dark Forces, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Academy, Racer Revenge, Rebel Assault, Shadows of the Empire, TIE Fighter, and X-Wing. That is freaking crazy, dude. Apparently they're rolling them all out one by one, starting June 28th with Bounty Hunter. But as somebody that just likes physical games and really obviously likes Star Wars, I'm really excited for this. That's just a cool thing to see. That's about all the news we got for you this week, but before we go, we got to do that console giveaway we do every single week. You know how this goes down by now. There's a link in the description. You click it to sign up. You enter once, then you're entered for good. And then every single week we go in and randomly choose one winner to earn a free console of their choice. So this week's winner is going to be this person right here. Congratulations. Be sure to keep an eye on your inbox, your spam box, stuff like that, because we're going to be reaching out to you to find out how we can send you your free stuff. But I want to talk to you guys about everything going on this week. First of all, Elden Ring. What do you expect from it? If you're a From Software game fan, do you want something new, or do you want just more of what they do good with a little George R.R. Martin sprinkled in? I don't know. How likely do you think we'll actually see The Last of Us Part 2 in February 2020? Do you think that's actually going to be a thing? Also, Cyberpunk. Would you like to see expansions? I certainly would. If you know the Cyberpunk lore in a really deep way, I'd love to know what you think, where you think they can expand things. I'm still just kind of reading through the rulebook, but I'd love to hear your insight. And of course, EA and Lootboxes and all that stuff. I'm sure you're going to read the title and you're just going to make fun of them in the comments, so go and do that. But let's talk about anything this week, anything gaming in the comments. We'll be there as much as possible, but of course, if you got anything else from me, if you want to yell at me or anything like that, hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at Jake Baldino. But thank you guys for coming around every Friday and watching our stuff. Like I said, we did do a bunch of E3 stuff, our 5 favorite games we played at E3. If you're still catching up, check that out. But as always, thank you guys. If you enjoyed this video, clicking the like button is the best way you can help us out. We would really appreciate that. But if you're new, you should consider subscribing and hitting that notification bell, because we put out videos every single day. So as always, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys next time. Pizza's on me.